Friday morning, 7:42 a.m. Light slowly spreads across the kitchen, that familiar soft band of California sun that usually makes coffee taste better and the day feel lighter. But today, the coffee is bitter. And not because I forgot the filter, like last time. I open my laptop and see it, your employment status. No subject line, no name, just an email from HR. The formal kind. Due to inconsistent performance and declining productivity, your position is being terminated effective immediately. Standard, I guess. But somehow, that word inconsistent rings louder in my head than any Monday morning alarm. I stare at the screen. No name. No signature. Just HR team, Westlake Division. Westlake, San Francisco, where leadership sits, the ones who've barely spoken to me except through KPIs. I take my mug, a sip of coffee. It's cold. I wonder whose productivity was I being compared to? Ryan, who posts memes in Slack every morning and forgets to update the Tableau dashboard? Or Sharon, who's been mixing up quarterly and annual numbers since March? I'm not being spiteful, honestly. I'm just curious. Because numbers are my thing. And if we're talking productivity, I've been carrying half the load manually for the past 2 months because our automation, by their own admission, isn't production ready yet. But I was. Last night, at 10:10 p.m., I closed the final file so they could submit the report for the board meeting. And today, at 7:42 a.m., the email. No call, no thank you for everything. Just, you're gone. I sit in my Berkeley kitchen staring at the screen as if it might suddenly say, just kidding. But it doesn't. Only the fridge hums in the background. Second sip of coffee. It tastes even more bitter. I'm not crying. Number HSROW and NIW. This is something else. You know that feeling when you walk into a room after a fire? The flames are out, but the smell still lingers. Exactly that. They didn't just fire me. They erased a witness. Because inconsistent performance is a beautiful wrapper for a very convenient lie. You don't raise your voice in meetings, you're not proactive. You don't like every idea your boss pitches, you're disengaged. You work silently, you're not involved enough. And then, declining productivity. Even though I've got the spreadsheets and dashboards to track everyone's, including those who called our department the back office with calculators. I open a draft reply, type, thank you for the opportunity. Delete. Then, please clarify which metrics informed your decision. Delete. I close the laptop. After all, they didn't bother to sign the email with a name. And I'm not obligated to give them mine. I stand, open the window. Eucalyptus from the street, neighbors walking dogs, someone bikes past on their way to campus. The world keeps breathing. And so do I. My mind is blank. But inside, it's not anger, not even sadness. It's suspicion. Suspicion that if I pull up my spreadsheets and trace the timeline of the last 2 months, I'll see that this was never about my productivity. It was about their fear. But for now, I take another sip of coffee. And I think, all right then, let's start a new line. 3 months ago. It was a Thursday, 11:40 a.m. I was sitting in a conference room, surrounded by papers, diagrams, and a tablet, because the projector was down again, and the quarterly presentation had to be redone in literally 90 minutes. Why? Because someone in leadership had a last-minute change of heart about our priorities and decided we needed to emphasize agility and customer centricity. I didn't blink. I just opened my spreadsheets, shifted the model, updated the dependencies, and manually changed the chart colors to blue because green, quote, signals risk to investors, not growth. Of course. Matt walked over the new manager. Matt, with his ever-present neon protein bottle, Apple Watch, and the face of a man who starts each day saying, "We're making history today." He leaned on a chair and said, "You're solid, Lauren, really, but we need spark, not just structure." I remember wanting to ask, do you even know that without structure, spark burns out in seconds? But I just nodded and said, understood. That day, he held a meeting called Reignite the Fire. Yes, Really? 30 minutes on Zoom, talking about team vibes and making startup as rocket metaphors. Someone even suggested everyone pick a personal booster word for the week. Mine would have been spreadsheet, but I kept quiet. You see the irony, right? Stability is boring, calm isn't trending. If you're not jumping in with ideas or talking over people on every call, you're considered secondary, back office, a shadow. And I was stable. I was the one they ran to when investors wanted to know where the money went. When clients said the numbers didn't match. When something needed to be recalculated fast, quietly, precisely. And I delivered, calmly, accurately, methodically. Matt, of course, didn't know that his entire first pitch deck was built on my models. That his beloved interactive growth funnel was just a formula I built manually, weeks before he was even hired. He called it a joint effort, though the only joint part was him writing the headlines and me creating the substance. At first, I thought maybe I just didn't fit the style. Okay, fair. Some people shout, some people calculate. Balance, as they say. But then I started noticing. My suggestions weren't mentioned in group discussions. My dashboards, unsigned, were forwarded up as part of team initiatives. On result, slides everyone's names but mine. Quiet meant convenient. Silent meant invisible. But I remember the moment it all clicked. It was the end of the quarter. Everyone was stressed our client forecast wasn't matching up. I went into the CRM and saw it. Duplicate entries for 3 major B2B clients. They were being counted twice across different regions. I fixed it and saved the entire quarterly report from collapsing. Matt later said, "We had a lucky break this time." And I thought, that wasn't luck, that was me. Stability as threat. Because if you're too precise, they get scared. If you're too confident in the data, they tune you out. If you're too essential, they'll either use you or erase you. I didn't tell anyone. Didn't complain. Just watched. Saved copies. Took notes. I wasn't Spark. I was the wiring that held the building together. And they thought they could cut me out. Without noticing, the lights start to flicker. At some point, I realized I was working in a theater. Just without curtains or a script. Everything became a show. Everything a performance. About 2 months ago, a wave of engagement boosting started. HR sent an email. Let's energize our internal culture. Try sharing your week's highlight on Slack using video, meme, or TikTok format. TikTok format, Carl. In the analytics department. But everyone jumped on board. Ryan, a junior analyst who just a month ago confused net revenue with gross profit, became our internal influencer. He posted short videos with filters, pitching like a pro, added music, animation, emojis. His favorite phrase, "Let's go team." We had a weekly demo day, 15 minutes to present an idea or insight. I prepared a segmentation report on user scenarios with 2 levels of hypotheses, churn models, and predictive analysis. All solid stuff. Ryan posted a 90-second clip titled, "User Love Funnel Why You'd." He jumped between slides, facepalm talking about churn, and ended with, "What if we gamify onboarding?" A slide with a Mario GIF, music, confetti, applause. His Q3 forecast had a 20% error. I checked. His demand was based on outdated January data that had already been revised. I quietly left a comment in the document. Data source was revised in the 4th of March report. Bias not accounted for. He didn't respond, but kept racking up likes. Then he got praise in the general Slack channel. Amazing energy and creativity. More of this, please. I sat there with my coffee, staring at my screen full of neatly named tabs and formulas tested in 3 stages, thinking, if only I sprinkled emojis in Excel, maybe they'd notice me too. Matt messaged me, "You should be more visible, maybe record your own short video next week, let people see your passion." My passion? My passion is when not a single cell in the report is left hanging. When the API matches down to the 5th decimal. When you don't need slides because you have facts, not animation. But that didn't matter anymore. What mattered now were voices. Impact. Noise. The louder you are, the more like you know something. The easier you joke, the smarter you seem. The more you throw around words like journey, activation, vibes, the more you become part of the game. They started calling me less. My comments got lost in the Slack feed. People opened my files but didn't say thanks. It wasn't hurtful. It was telling. Where there's noise, there's success. Even if under the noise there's a forecast error, unaccounted costs, and a failure waiting tomorrow. And I kept doing my work. Quietly. Precisely. With backups safely saved. Performance review was scheduled for Wednesday at 10 a.m. In Outlook 45 minutes, marked as mandatory. I arrived 5 minutes early. The manager, Zachary Brinson, was already waiting in the conference room, and what immediately put me on edge was the projector being on. On the screen, a slide titled, Lauren, Growth Opportunities and Alignment. Slides. He had prepared slides. For my performance review. I thought it would be helpful, he said, starting the first animation, to visualize some of the areas we can grow together. The first slide, team culture participation. A graph showing the number of Slack messages. An inspiring comparison. Ryan, 213. Jasmine, 178. Lauren, 12. He smiled. It's not about volume, it's about vibe, and yours is a little too neutral. Next slide. Brainstorm engagement metrics. A photo from a team session where everyone is drawing on a whiteboard and me with my laptop, apparently working. You tend to lean into tasks, but not ideation, and ideation is where the team magic starts. I stayed silent. He continued like a TED Talk, slide after slide, color schemes, emojis, positive wording. You're incredibly reliable, Lauren, but we need people who don't just complete tasks, but amplify energy. I replied calmly. I'm not a DJ, I'm an analyst, I show results. They're in the spreadsheet, not in a GIF. He tensed slightly. It's just, the culture is evolving. It's more collaborative now, more spontaneous. I thought, spontaneity as a strategy is an oxymoron. And also, I already understood everything. This wasn't a review. It was preparation to push me out. He ended on a slide titled Suggested Action Plan. It said, increase activity in the Slack channel. Record a video overview of your analytics for the team meeting. Show more human touch in communication. I nodded. Thank you. Can I have a copy of this presentation? He looked uncomfortable. Why? I want HR to see how performance is being measured now. He didn't know what to say. I left. Returned to my desk. Opened that very Excel file. The one where, unlike all those slides, everything adds up. Every number, every decision. I knew they're not keeping me. But I'm not falling, I'm documenting. The morning started as usual. The weather in Austin was clear, the coffee warm, and in my inbox an email titled, Update regarding your position. I didn't open it right away. Something about the tone of the subject line, not anxious, just flat. Too flat. Like the moment before a door closes. I open it. We regret to inform you that your position has been eliminated effective immediately due to organizational restructuring and performance-related factors. It wasn't signed by my manager. Not even someone from the team. Just HR department and an auto footer. 5 minutes later, a calendar invite for a Zoom meeting. The HR manager, a woman named Savannah, smiles neutrally. Hi, Lauren. First, I want to acknowledge that this is probably unexpected. I say nothing. We understand this may be difficult. I want to emphasize that this decision was not personal, it's strategic. Strategic. They always choose that word. It means nothing, but sounds like everything was calculated. My eyes scan my desk. On the wall, my printed chart, quarterly revenue growth. Built from data I manually consolidated across 18 departments. This chart was shown to investors. This chart they credited to inspired teamwork. This chart is me, only without emojis or slides. Is there anything you'd like to say? Savannah asks. I almost speak. Almost. But then I realize, not here, not now, not for them. I turn off the camera, sit with my coffee, quiet, and think. Sometimes they don't fire the weak link, but what reminds them of reality? Because reality doesn't clap hands. It doesn't post in Slack. It simply shows what works, or doesn't. And if you show too clearly what works, you become dangerous. Especially if you don't seek approval, only accuracy. I open my laptop and create a new file. Not for them, for myself. The first week after being let go felt like a vacuum. There was no anger, no tears, only exhaustion. Strange, deep, I just slept. Woke up, drank coffee, sat on the couch in pajamas with my hair down. Laptop closed, Slack deleted, didn't open Excel. It was my personal morning. For the structure, for the spreadsheets where everything added up, for the forecasts that worked even when no one believed. In the second week, I opened LinkedIn. My last activity, a like on someone else's post about growth culture. Ironic. Updated my status. Added a new description. Business analyst vertical bar forecasting vertical bar clean logic over noisy trends. Wrote a short post. Sometimes, low performance is just a synonym for independent thinking, looking for new challenges where facts matter more than volume. Sent it. Closed the laptop. The old team stayed silent. Not a single message from the manager. No, good luck, no, sorry. Only one notification. I was removed from the shared workspace. A couple of days later, late at night, a message came through Slack, a direct message. Ben, our junior analyst. Always quiet, shoulders hunched. He wrote with mistakes but was meticulous. He said, "Hey Lauren, it's crazy. You were the only one who knew how it all worked. Now it's a mess." I answered shortly. Then I was dangerous. Then added, "Hang in there, make backups." He sent a sticker, a panda in a helmet. I smiled. You know, when they erase you from the system you built, there comes a moment, as if everything you created starts falling apart without you. Not because you were irreplaceable, but because no one understood how it worked. And then you suddenly realize, you weren't a cog, you were the blueprint. Denver greeted me with snow and a lack of hustle. In this city, no one pretends to work. You either work or you get out of the way. The offer came through a mutual acquaintance. Matt used to be a product analyst at the same holding company as me, but now he had moved to a startup where they still hadn't figured out how to run meetings properly. There was chaos. But honest chaos. Lauren, we don't need another person who feels the metrics. We need someone who knows how to count them. So I found myself in an office on the 6th floor of a building with no sign. The startup was called Nuvex, a platform for logistics optimization. Their technology was, at the very least, ambitious. And their data, at the very least, panicked. I got access to their dashboard and realized everything was based on intuition and visual checkmarks. One report looked like a mood board for a designer, color palettes, gradients, titles like Momentum Tracker. But the numbers didn't add up. The supply forecast for Q2 was overstated by 18%. About $30,000 was leaking from the budget every month. Simply because no one noticed 3 unnecessary API subscriptions still running. I didn't complain. I opened Excel, SQL, and just fixed it. 2 weeks later, I brought a simple 6-page document with tables and screenshots to the stand-up. Quietly, calmly. Not a single GIF. After the meeting, the founder, Jake, approached me. He asked, "Why didn't your last company fight to keep you?" I looked at him and answered, "They were busy choosing who makes better GIFs." He paused, then laughed. "For real?" "Well, thank God we like boring people here." I smiled, for the first time in a long time. While others pitch, put on shows, and learn to speak convincingly, someone just fixes the server, updates the formulas, and stops the money from leaking. And, you know, I'm glad I ended up on the team that fixes things. A month after my dismissal came what I called the silent news. No fanfare, no press release, just a series of LinkedIn updates, open to work, exploring new opportunities from people I had worked with in the analytics department. An entire department disbanded. The official wording: Department realignment as part of broader restructuring. But the industry has sharp ears and even sharper eyes. Within 2 days, Blind was buzzing. Anonymous posts, screenshots from internal chats, fragments of presentations where the numbers simply didn't add up. They let go the one who held the logic. Now it's chaos. Strategy deck had placeholders in the final version. No one noticed. Asked to reforecast with more optimism. We said no, now we're gone. One post hit me especially hard, a photo of a whiteboard with a sloppy sketch of the relationship between ROI and engagement rate, and the caption, "This was what replaced structured modeling. Feel safe yet?" Ironically, a month before, I was fired for lack of engagement and inflexibility, and now, everything had become too flexible, without a foundation, without logic. I sat in a cafe in Denver scrolling through all these posts. There was even a hint that one of the investment partners had paused participation due to poor quality of internal analytics. My old department, which had done everything by feeling, was now doing nothing. Or rather pretending to manage. But numbers don't like hypocrisy. They either add up or they don't. My favorite comment was from a former intern. First they cut the voice of reason, then the floor gave out. Classic. And there I was, sipping a vanilla latte, thinking, they didn't throw me away, they evacuated me. While someone was building a theater of efficiency, I was just looking for a way out. I found it. And now I don't look back. Because when everything collapses, it doesn't matter who was the loudest. What matters is whose hands held up the beam. It was 2.5 weeks after the shockwaves from the analytics department shutdown when I received an email from an unfamiliar personal address. The subject line read, "Lauren, I owe you an apology." The sender was Jason Kimball, the former CTO of our company. I hardly ever spoke to him directly. He was a floor above both literally and in the hierarchy. When I opened the email, my heart skipped a beat. It was brief. "I just learned it was your logic behind the forecasting system. I'm sorry I didn't realize sooner. You should have been protected. We didn't lose a model, we lost a mind." I reread it twice, the third time slowly. Not because of regret, because of unexpected honesty. I thought long about whether to reply. Then I simply wrote, "It's okay, my new boss knows, and uses it." No bitterness, no complaint, just a fact. While they were frantically recalculating budgets manually, I was already building a reporting system for a B2B SaaS product in Denver, where analytics isn't an optional voice, but the operational core. A couple of days later, a new notification on LinkedIn. I was mentioned in a post by Mark Singleton, an analyst from McKinsey. He was analyzing a case study titled, "How Companies Lose Knowledge and Pay 7 times More for It." In the middle of the article was a chart comparing the old forecasting models our team used and the ones I had designed. Below it was the caption, "System architected by Lauren Green, removed weeks before model failure." He wrote, "This is a classic example of intellectual displacement. Fire the wrong person and you don't just lose skills, you lose the memory of logic." The post went viral, over 11,000 likes. Comments came from people at Google, Stripe, even someone from Palantir wrote, "It's always the quiet Excel genius they regret letting go." I looked at it and realized I had become more than just an ex-employee. I was a Harvard Business Review case study, in a good way. The funniest part, the HR folks who never used to respond to internal queries now liked that post, probably so they wouldn't seem completely tone-deaf. But I no longer cared. They sent me a letter, but it was too late. By then, I was writing new formulas, with a new boss and a new salary. In an office where stickers on walls don't matter, only data architecture does. The letter didn't come to my inbox, it came on LinkedIn. But my answer was the same. I left and became visible. San Jose. Spring. A huge conference hall dimly lit, filled with the hum of hundreds of coffee machines between panels. The conference was called DataCraft West 2025, one of the largest on analytics, automation, and predictive systems on the West Coast. I stood backstage in a charcoal gray business suit. My hands didn't tremble. The fear had left the moment I received the first email marked Keynote Request. My talk was the last session of the day. The topic: when the system is a person, analytics versus the illusion of motion. The stage. I stepped out and clicked the remote. The first slide showed a simple chart. 2 forecast lines, one steady and precise, the other wobbly and emotional. Above it, a caption. Data don't shout, they work. I began. Last year I lost my job. The reason: low performance. A month later, the entire department I worked in was shut down. Strange coincidence, isn't it? The audience smiled. Someone chuckled. Pause. I continued. But I'm not here to complain. I'm here to show you slide 2. Click. The screen showed the architecture of the forecasting model I rebuilt in a Denver startup. I explained how it worked, what errors I fixed, and how much budget I saved. Then I said, my contribution wasn't ideas, it was verification. I didn't make stickers, I built a system. And when they let me go, the system went away too. The last slide. A simple phrase on a white background. Fired means I stepped forward. I looked out at the crowd, pause, then the closing. In a world where people choose visibility, choose verifiability. Less hype, more logic. Because sometimes, when it feels like you were thrown out, you were actually set free. The audience applauded, someone stood up. And I smiled. Because now I wasn't just heard. Now I was quoted.